Hey kids, it's Dad. Welcome to the Gaming with Dad show. Today we are looking at Atari 50, the anniversary celebration expanded edition. Now, I did actually pick up the metal box physical version of this. It came with a couple of marquees, came with some cards, came with a fake business card. But before we do all that, make sure to like, subscribe, leave a comment, ring that bell, all that silly stuff that YouTube really likes, especially if you're a returner who hasn't subscribed already. But yes, Atari 50 anniversary celebration is $49.99. That's the digital version, or the physical copy with all that extra stuff. You can pick that up on Amazon if you are so inclined. And yes, this is a celebration of the Atari brand, as well as some of those things that they've collected over the years through licensing and purchasing. So expand the celebration, experience an interactive journey through 50 years of video games. Atari, the 50th anniversary celebration Expanded Edition gives you access to the full Atari 50, the anniversary celebration game, plus the following content. It's the wider world of Atari, which includes more timelines and everything. And then also the first console war, which, unbeknownst to a lot of people, Atari actually bought an awful lot of the Mattel and Television's game library. Now, there are no actual Intellivision games on here, but there are the M Network games on this. Now, originally released September 26, 2024, single system, 1 to 4 players, arcade action adventure video from Atari, rated T for teen, supports all 3 play modes. It is 11.7 gigs and is in English, French, German, Italian, Japanese, and Spanish. So with all of that said, let's talk a little bit about this. And I will openly admit I have a bias. This is the generation of video games that drew me in. I was a Mattel and Television kid. The George Plimpton commercials comparing Atari and Intellivision spoke to my family. And I absolutely positively still love the Mattel and Television, but I also have a fondness for a lot of these Atari games. And there's an awful lot in this game, which includes the 2800, 5200, 7800. There's also a lot of the Atari's Lynx, the Jaguar, their arcade titles are all here. And it is just a very well put together history of Atari. And even that very first console war, which really was the Atari 2600, the Mattel and Television, and then later on the ColecoVision. And yeah, once again, I'm biased. I'm an Intellivision kid. But that said, graphically, this is some of the best emulation I have seen, especially on the Nintendo Switch for these titles. And yes, I could go on ahead, load all these ROMs onto my 35XX SP and play them, but this is a way to legally get those without having to jump through some of those kind of gray areas of the internet. And that said, there's also a lot of other stuff here that makes this collection very interesting. There are videos documenting the history of all of the consoles. There's the timeline that you can flip through. And there's just a great deal of content. But graphically, these are true to form. The arcade games are great. It has got the best version of Tempest ever, which is actually the Jaguar version. And that is just glorious. I forgot how actually powerful that system was, even though it wasn't truly 64-bit. Even though, yeah, I did the math, and I can't get to it. That they got to 64 bits on the Jaguar through algebra, and that's just not something I'm good at. But these games are true to how they looked when they were originally released. Graphically, I am giving it an 18. The further back you go, kind of the worse the graphics get, but they're representative of how they looked at the time. Sound-wise, again, this is another thing. You got the little jaunty background music on the timelines, and the videos all sound great. The games have that original audio. I didn't sense any lag or anything along those lines. So that was good. Sometimes you get that when you are emulating games. The sound doesn't quite match up. Not seeing that here, or hearing that here actually. So I'm giving sound a 17. That's 35. Controls, there's like 150 games here. The controls are all kind of variant on how each individual game controls. And you'll see that some of these games control extremely well, some don't. That's why I really can't give the controls higher than a 17. I mean, they're true to how the game was released, but on average, they kind of end up working the way that they're supposed to work. So yeah, controls are a 17, we're sitting at 52. Gameplay. Gameplay is another thing that you kind of have to look at as a whole. How do these games play? Some of them are extremely good. Some of them are kind of questionable. Some of them just haven't aged well. And quite honestly, one of my favorite games on the Intellivision is Night Stalker. Now, Dark Cavern, I think that's the name of it on the Atari, because M Network games very rarely shared the same name as their Intellivision counterpart. It controls significantly worse than the Intellivision version. But that gameplay is still there. It's still solid. And that's one of those things. A lot of these games are classics. Some of them are games I didn't even know existed. Just because maybe I skipped that console. But these are it's a solid collection of games. Gameplay does get a 16 just because of some of that variation and the fact that a lot of the 2600 games haven't aged well. We're sitting at 68. Now, value-wise, and this is really where this product shines, because you have so much content, not just all of the games, but then you have the timelines, the videos, you've got the Atari computer line, and you have games that you can play there, and that's something that very few people in the US, at least, I think even knew Atari had a home computer line, but it was really huge over in the UK and Europe. It is such a solid collection, and there's so much additional content that you get with it. And yeah, you get those M Network games, or not all of them, but a lot of them. You get kind of that acknowledgement that even though Atari killed the Intellivision in that first console war, they do respect. And it's an interesting statement to have Intellivision games on the Atari, and then likewise Atari wanted to put Intellivision or Atari games on the Intellivision. It's a love letter to the 80s. And hey, as a not really a child of the 80s, I'm more of a child of the 70s, teenage years spent in the 80s. This is such a fantastic collection, but that $49.99 price tag is difficult to swallow. I am giving value a 17. We're sitting at a grand total of 85 for the Atari 50 Expanded Collection. It's really one of those. It's well produced, well curated. There's so much extra content and a lot of history that is being represented here, and this is a great preservation of these classic games, and it's a great way to play them as well. And there's none of that icky kind of gray area of, well, I don't own the cartridge, but I downloaded the ROM. Is that really legal? None of those questions come into play, because you've actually bought these games from the company that owns them, and it's great to see that they're doing stuff with these titles that would otherwise be forgotten. I would highly recommend going out and picking this up. Have yourselves a great one. We'll talk to you kids later. Bye-bye. Got some videos here, as well as a subscribe button. Make sure to click that. Ring the bell. Leave comments. In general, be kind in those. My mom used to read them. Thank you.